Welcome to Marketing Machines and Mischief, where every day is somehow Payday Friday. My name is Matthew Newell.
And I'm Chris Stone. And today's episode, we're going to be talking about the future of marketing to children, both in the U.S. and around the world. How will an increasingly connected and AI-driven world reshape what marketers can, can't, and should do in the future? Plus, this week's most impactful marketing and advertising headlines brought to you by Newell-Insky.
If you work in marketing or advertising and want to stay a few steps ahead of the industry, the journey starts now. Today's lead headline, and I love this because this feels like it is going to be the next couple years of watching. Novo Nordisk is suing Eli Lilly over advertising that claims Lilly's GLP-1 drugs outperform Novo's competing obesity and diabetes treatments. The details will drive you nuts, but let's just say that one side thinks the other side is lying. They allege that the comparisons rely on outdated studies, matching the highest dose, blah, blah, blah. The dispute has significant reach. One contested Zepbound commercial reportedly generated more than 700 million impressions. Novo is seeking damages, corrective advertising, and an order stopping the campaigns. So what are we going to learn from this? Comparative claims. You know what? We're not going to learn anything. Just make your claims and good luck.
These disclosures that are buried in the fine print that may not correct a permanent headline, like all of those things, like you can't just trust that whatever, somebody's saying at 100 times the speed at the end of a commercial or the fine print, right, that whatever you stick in there is actually doing it. People are actually looking at these things. And if you're a company that's doing this and advertising like that, you better make sure you double and triple check your work with a human.
Yes. Coming from a lot of regulated industries, your competitors and some, kind of eccentric consumers are going to read the fine print and they're going to hold you accountable. So this is going to go on for a while. This will be a fun one to watch. Next in the marketing news docket. So Chris, on this show, we've talked about the advertising spend for 2026, and we are all waiting with bated breath to see if it goes over the $1 trillion mark for 2026. It's going to, start paying up your bets now. However, if you combine the advertising and marketing spend, it is now projected to exceed $2.1 trillion. That is up almost 10% from 2025 as brands prioritize measurable, personalized digital channels. So the YouTube and Instagram are leading the video growth on this, while Facebook remains the most widely used platform and top reported social channel for ROI. And of course, AI is the gas that is lighting all of this. Before we get to what are you to learn from this? We're all spending more. This is an arms race to spend more and to stand out.
Yeah, it was interesting that you said the Facebook is still the ROI champ. That's crazy, because it turns out like grandma clicking on the shop now button on the casserole dish ad is worth more than all of these AI avatar ads that everybody's making combined. That's crazy.
It really is. And also keep in mind, Facebook /Meta /Instagram /WhatsApp, they also have the loosest, we've talked about this on the show before, about a 10%, I'm just calling it a scam percentage of it's either a company that doesn't exist, a product that doesn't exist, something nefarious. So with Facebook being the epicenter of this growth, that also means that the scammers are making money too. So,
All
good
right.
for them.
Shout out
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
scammers.
Good year for the scammers. And our final news headline, a French, hold on, I need a cigarette for this. A French parliamentary committee agreed on legislation that would ban children under 15 from accessing social media, reflecting growing international concern about the effects of these platforms on young people. The proposal called for the platforms themselves to introduce the age verification. That's always been a big challenge in here. Is this a government responsibility? Is this the company's responsibility? And I think if you look at profit and loss sheets, you would quickly agree that it's the company's responsibility. President Emmanuel Macron pushed for implementation by the beginning of September. So very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So this follows I'm sure, Chris, well, we've talked about it on the show. This follows the UK. This follows Australia. This is going to get us into our deep dive on this topic. But Chris, what do you think of this before we start getting into children and safety and advertising?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much, or if the U.S. pays attention to anything that France is doing. Banning kids from social media and phones in school. Meanwhile, American marketers are still trying to figure out how to target a 14-year-old's aesthetic with a face filter. It's a much different world as it relates to this in the United States. Certainly, like you said, I think brands should prepare for that tighter age gating, like you're talking about. But I don't know if that matters in the United States or not with what we've going on. There's just so many varying degrees. It's pretty much, we say this all the time, a Wild West in terms of how these things are regulated.
That's exactly right. And what's going to be what I feel is, before we start getting into the details of children and regulation and marketing and advertising, the difficult part is if France goes 6 months, for example, with the ban under 15, and all of a sudden they see their math and literature and other measurements improve, then great. Then we can see that it's worked. But in the United States, we're never going to be good at the math or the literature or the science. Come on. we could have triple bans on this kind of stuff. And that's just kind of not our state. The US needs 5 people that can do AI, and then the rest of us are just going to enjoy it. That's all.
Well, so I've got a question related to this, Matthew, because we're going to get into COPPA compliance, which stands for, correct me, Children's
Online Protection, something.
Privacy Protection
Act. Yep.
All right. Good. So the thing is about here is we don't have one law. We've got a law quilt. So COPPA covers the little ones. So, some states cover teens.
That's right.
And all these platforms, they have their own rules.
That's right.
And somehow marketers are supposed to keep it all straight without a law degree. Matthew, I mean, if you're running a campaign that touches 5 states and 3 platforms, whose rules actually win?
Oh, it's very much like this may be an inelegant metaphor, but it's kind of like our voting laws, how voting laws are in Marietta, Georgia, and Portland, Oregon are completely different, and hoping to have the same output. You're exactly right. There is no federal legislation. Or I shouldn't say that. There's a thin line of federal legislation that hits 13 and younger. Then it's a patchwork of state by state. Some of them it's 16, some of them it's 15. There are some city jurisdictions that do some restrictions on children's advertising too. So here's what, and then there aren't just limits on whether you can or not. There are also limits. I found this in the research leading up to the show. Children's television itself has advertising limits where they are limited to 12 minutes per hour on weekdays and 10 minutes on the weekends. So if you put that here's an easy way to cheat that. Most sitcoms are 22. This is just easy math. Most sitcoms are 22 minutes because there's roughly 8 minutes of ads per half hour. So that means there's 16 minutes of adult commercials per hour. And they're limiting that to either 10 or 12 for children, which is a great thing. But again, you probably need that's something that the channels themselves have to keep up with. That doesn't mean that in this case the people peddling their products have to have those law degrees to figure all that out.
Well, let me ask you this, Matthew, because you brought up broadcast television and the the 12 minutes of ads per hour on weekdays, 10 and a half hours for weekends for kids TV. But meanwhile, a kid can scroll TikTok for 6 straight hours and get hit with ads every 30 seconds.
I know.
We regulated the medium that's dying and maybe ignored the one that's perhaps in some cases, unfortunately, raising an entire generation. So you and I grew up in a generation where when TV came on and you had just a handful of channels and advertising was what it was, and you watched television on Saturday mornings for cartoons, and we had we watched Looney Tunes where they had almost adult innuendos at times, and
That's right.
classical music, but they piped in ads where they could on Pop-Tarts and toys and all kinds of things to for kids. But it's obviously it's a completely different time now, and parents are handing kids tablets and smartphones.
Exactly right. And not even that, even especially so the FCC and Congress explicitly has regulation over broadcast media because they own the broadcast wavelengths, but that's like 5 channels.
Right.
I mean, like I wish I was even joking. It's literally like 5 or 6 channels, and well, I guess you can throw in like all the independent PBS channels. But once you get beyond that, once you get into even cable, before you get to streaming and online, now we're talking hundreds and hundreds of non-regulated outcomes. Maybe are we far enough into the show that we can say, there should be a little bit of parental oversight in this? I think
that's a great. I think we're going there already, right?
Because none of these senators know exactly what your child is watching and how they're watching it. The thing that I think that while the FCC is explicitly regulated to the spectrum of broadcast TV, they also can pass laws really across the board. And I think one of the instances in the last 10 years that sent some shivers up and down advertiser spines was, and this actually goes back to COPPA, 2019, YouTube and Google paid a $170 million federal fine over alleged COPPA violations. Now, my take on it at the time and even now was, hey, we're violating something that we didn't. It was so new, and in a lot of cases, it was stuff that had been online for years and years and years. So my take was that Google, maybe they had the parent company Alphabet at that time, said, you know what? Let's write the check and then let's just clean all this off and have a start fresh. Because as you know, Chris, so they wrote that check and then they immediately started YouTube Kids, and YouTube Kids is one of the almost unabashed successes of marketing and advertising. It's almost like the PBS Kids of the online world. Having met some of the people behind the scenes, both at YouTube and YouTube Kids, they take that very seriously, and not even from we don't want to break the law because we don't want another $190 million fine, but this is our responsibility. Like we are all part of this society that we're trying to grow. This is part of our responsibility, and we want to do this right.
They took that $170 million spanking before they figured it out. But I think there's a lot of things, you know. So if for instance, this show, we will upload this to YouTube, and there is not a single way anyone can upload any video to YouTube without marking
Yes.
is if it's targeting kids or not. So obviously we're not targeting kids with this show. That's not our demographic. But if you're creating kids content, you have to mark it as such, and then I'm sure it goes down a whole other pathway, right? And there's a whole compliance thing that happens there. But if you mark that it's not for kids, and it is in fact for kids, which I've never run into that situation, it may be a whole different thing. So we're getting in the weeds on the YouTube thing. But Matthew, I wanted to touch on this because we are talking about YouTube, and one of the reasons why we're doing this particular show and this particular topic for this particular show is that we got a message from someone on our YouTube channel, which, by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening on an audio podcast, you can go to our YouTube channel. We answer all the comments. We love it when people, chime in, whether they've got something to say that's nice, like our friend here has to say, or not. We're here to hopefully create a community that loves marketing and wants to achieve. So this is a message from @GailDoesDIY. So Gail V, thank you for this comment. Gail,
what up, Gail?
What is up? Gail says, "Hey guys, I'm new to your channel, so I'm glad I found you guys. I'm glad you found us too. I chuckle at how much advertising is shaping our world as I took an Uber today while listening to Spotify." Uh-oh, Gail. Yeah, there's lots of ads happening there. But speaking of companies now focusing on ads, have you seen the new movie Goat? I was shocked at how much blatant brand marketing was in a kids movie, especially since YouTube has no ads for kids content. I think the big companies are coming up with alternative ways or loopholes to market to the adults, even in kid content. I would love to know what you both think, maybe for a podcast episode discussion. So Gail, here we are in a podcast episode discussion. And this is truly on brand for us, Matthew, as it relates to a lot of the content that you talk about in your book, White Hat Marketing.
Yes.
Link in the show notes. You won't do it, but I will. So Matthew, I don't know if you saw that movie. I did. And I think this plays perfectly into this conversation as well, because it kind of feels like there's no real guidelines for something like this. I watched this movie and it's a perfectly fine, headed up by Steph Curry, the NBA player. And it was fun, and about a goat who is joining this league to be the star basketball player. And it's your typical kind of story. But I did notice things like a Mercedes-Benz logo that showed up, a PlayStation. Steph Curry has a huge sponsorship with Under Armour. In fact, we've covered this on an earlier episode as well. And there was some Under Armour sort of placement. Now, it wasn't super blatant. I don't want to even say it was subliminal either. I recognize those logos right away. Those are very recognizable logos, and I'm sure those conversations were happening throughout. Now, are those brands something we should avoid? Probably not, but I think it stands to reason that we should have conversations like this. And, how is this advertising being woven into an actual kids movie, Matthew?
None of COPPA, like product placement. We continue, Chris, you and I have talked a lot about influencer marketing and how that continues to be, that's turning into the next, like, this isn't a one-off thing. Like, this is just kind of the future, and we're going to allocate to influencer marketing. I think product placement is probably the lesser known marketing tactic that we're going to get in. Particularly, I'm not saying that the GOAT movie did it explicitly to skirt rules, but if you're going to have a bunch of 10-year-old eyeballs around here, I don't know why Mercedes found found their way into kids.
I have a point on that.
Yes.
I'll let you finish. But
remember that part of back in the 80s, part of where the original regulation for children's advertising on TV, and this is specifically because of He-Man, was to make it more clear when there's a character in a show or when it's product placement in a show. And so, yeah, exactly, because they were back in the 80s, they were doing the same thing to us in our generation, which was basically just skirting the traditional advertising rules by dropping in product placement.
Back to the point on Mercedes, and are kids going to be drinking an Under Armour sports drink? Or I think PlayStation feels on brand for kids. Mercedes-Benz, like you say. When movies were more prominent in theaters, kids will go to movies with their parents. And as parents, Matthew, you and I probably went to many more animated movies than we would have cared to have gone to.
True.
Well, you've got to make, just like the Bugs Bunny, Looney Tunes example, you have to make it enjoyable for adults as well, so that it's, and so there will be innuendos, there will be a Mercedes-Benz logo, there will be some other things, knowing that there may be somebody that is, 16 plus and, a parent that is able to drive and sees a Mercedes-Benz logo and goes, that was a cool car that goat drove in that animated movie or whatever. Maybe it was just a lark for Mercedes-Benz.
Right.
Maybe,
right.
Or maybe Steph Curry had a deal with Mercedes-Benz and say, hey, can I throw you in my animated movie? Yeah, sure, whatever.
That's right. Just send me over one of your top shelf cars and we'll put you in the movie. Well, I want to be sure, because there are so many details related to marketing and advertising and regulation in general, and the regulation of how this affects children is going to continue, especially as we understand more about the implications of social media, as we figure out what is going to start happening with influencer marketing. That's so new. But I want to be sure that you and I say on this show that this all can be. Maybe this is the reason for us to be here, Chris. This all can be, I shouldn't say all, 95% of this can be solved with two components. Number one, we already mentioned, which is the parent. The parent is the one who's got the iPad. The parent is the one who's got the screeners taking kids to see the movies, whatever it is. The parent has to be involved. And I say that pretty sure that most parents are involved. So I don't have it. What I'm more worried about is the other side of this, which is the marketer and advertiser's responsibility. Mm-hmm. Because the thing in the middle, which is the profit motivation by the platform, that's always going to be there. And that's always going to have a little bit of a bias. So the marketer needs to be comfortable. The advertiser needs to be comfortable and think, when I'm going to like, these are all human decisions. AI did not put your marketing plan together. Well,
whoops.
Exactly. and unless you're a bunch of idiots in central Utah, then AI did put your marketing your marketing plan together. But for the most part, it's still humans doing it, and it is our human responsibility to make sure we can differ on I would have done this or I wouldn't have done that, but at least you need to put the thought into it so that if and when the regulators come knocking on your door and they're like, hey, why are you advertising Sunny D Jägermeister to 8-year-olds on Saturday morning cartoons? You might want to have an answer for that.
Well said. Absolutely well said. As humans, it's not one size fits all, especially as it relates to age. We've talked on the show before about the formation of the human brain at certain ages and how, the Sunny D example and, when you have your first taste of alcohol and how that affects you later in life, all of those kinds of things. I think marketers have to be better in treating this the most proper way, and not just, is your money green? This worked for this, so we're just going to, bolt this on to this thing as it relates to marketing to children. Really have that sort of ownership mindset. So that was incredibly well said.
Thank you. And just to put a fine point on it, when I was a young marketer and advertiser, oftentimes it's like, that's really not my, I don't have a kid. I'm just here trying to sell socks or whatever it is. Remember that one day in your life, you're going to be older and you're going to have kids and grandkids too. And they're going to be, we marketers, as we talked about at the top of the show, we marketers are controlling $2.1 trillion of money that affects people's thoughts and decisions and purchasing. That's a huge amount of influence, even if us individually don't have the entire 2.1 trillion. So use the money wisely. No one's saying don't make money for your products. We are saying let's be especially when it comes to the kids. I may be the first one. This thought just occurred to me. I may be the first one to say this out loud. I believe the children are the future.
Oh, lead them well and let them lead the way. I don't know the lyrics. I should know the lyrics. You stumped me.
Your paycheck. You got a lot of coin off of that line in your paycheck for a while.
That's true. Made a few car payments, that song did. All right. So Matthew, we can't go any further without talking about this huge 900-pound robot in the room. And how AI and the use of AI and even agentic AI fits into all of this, right? It's difficult to imagine. I mean, we're seeing a lot of AI stuff, and some of it's considered, slop, and we put that in there, but it's getting better, right? We're seeing ads and things are looking, incredibly looking great in terms of not just visuals, but the content, the written content, the spoken content. The AI targeting for ads, the AI creation of the ads. I wanted to get your thoughts on that as it relates to all this. Obviously, we're talking about, not just, a human being involved in this, but we're talking about parents, being involved, in this. And now we're talking about AI, and the parents don't know anything. The most they know about AI is they have this ChatGPT app on their phone, and it pops up when they Google something. So what are your thoughts there?
It's a great call out, and it's such a conundrum because one of the benefits of AI is just how quickly it can spin off new content and the variables of advertising and targeting. Right. But that same benefit can be the downfall, which is AI can unintentionally target children. AI can unintentionally create ads that lean towards children, but the AI doesn't know it. Like even people with the best, even marketers and advertisers and brands with the best intentions can run afoul, because there's so much happening in this space that is just happening agentically or programmatically or whatever we want to call it now. That's a great call out, Chris, because we are, if we thought the Wild West of social media was wild, this really is going to be that times 5, which is why you need people like you and me and our listeners and viewers need to keep talking about it, because it's going to change so quickly, and we need to stay on top of it in order to keep it's not just avoiding fines, but in order to keep a healthy marketing and advertising ecosystem, because we know that we're frying the brains, not just the advertisers, but we're frying the brains of the adults with all their screen time. We're the ones, the advertisers are the ones who are funding that. But we can't risk that with our kids and, having a bunch of, idiot bobbleheads with fried brains, by the time they turn 20. That was my job. I already did it. This new generation needs to do something else.
Well said. And I think it puts a lot of perspective on this, right? I think, listen, we love the usage of AI, but using it properly and not letting it run amok and hallucinate and not being involved in that process. If it's affecting our children, our children's children, we have to be mindful of that. It's happening so fast, especially in the agentic field, is that I fear, Matthew, that any regulatory things are not going to happen quickly enough before something
Great point.
Something happens. God forbid something happens, that's bad related to that. And I'm not even going to speculate on what that would be, but I certainly feel like, you don't want to look at it like this is the tidal wave coming to the shore necessarily as it relates to this, but we can't, as humans, we have to put up these walls so that that we protect our children and our children's children. I do see, Matthew, at times there are kids that look at this stuff and see this stuff and go, that's fake. I hate it. Right. So they're in a way, I'm kind of like, okay, that means you got to be better at what you're doing. And, it may not be affecting them, but it's just from what I see through my lens. There's, obviously billions of more people that may be affected differently by it.
You make great points. I'll point out that we already have had lawsuits. Then this doesn't have anything to do with marketing and advertising. Well, we've already had lawsuits of parents suing some of the AI companies because their child took their own life because of the AI encouraging to, or allegedly encouraging them to do that. One other point, Chris, you did a great job a few episodes ago of reminding everyone that Spotify is an advertiser that happens to play music. What's interesting about the AI world is AI didn't come to life with advertising already built into its DNA. It's going to be a bolt-on, and it's going to be interesting to see how that changes, hopefully positively, but how that changes the relationship, because with Spotify, you take that advertising away. I mean, I guess they have subscriptions too. So, but because early days, it was all built on advertising, you take that away and there's no business model. With AI, especially with some of the top players right now, you take the advertiser away, it's still a legit company worth gazillions of dollars. So hopefully that'll put less, hopefully that'll put, I hate that it takes a little bit of the power away from the marketer and advertiser, but hopefully it gives the AI companies a little more flexibility to do the right thing and not just follow what the marketers and the advertisers want.
Excellent point. And I think a lot of the money that could come from advertising with, LLMs and AIs and all of that is really to help offset all the expenditure. It is people just think that this is just like somebody, sitting with a room full of computers, right? There's huge areas of real estate that are being bought to create these massive infrastructures for OpenAI and Anthropic and all of these companies that make these things. And so at some point, if you're on a free plan, ladies and gentlemen, or you're even on the entry level plan, these things are going up. And so you're going to have to pick one. Either you're going to get, hit with a casserole ad every so often when you ask how you should rewrite an email reply, or you're going to be paying more. So that's kind of the way Spotify. People cry and complain about how their Spotify plan raises, every year, 6 months or whatever, or their Netflix, right, and all of these things. Take your pick, folks. You want free and you want ads, or do you want to pay more money? In either case, you're likely going to be paying in some way, shape, or form. And so, and that's where marketing comes in, right? We're here for the ads.
And maybe this is a future discussion, but I've been really interested in the last couple of weeks. I've heard some really smart people around the AI world talk about how the future is going to be around. It's not going to be necessarily the difference between the rich and the poor financially. We're going to start getting into a scenario where it's all going to be about the tokenization and who has AI tokens and who doesn't, and the disparity between those. And that goes exactly to your point. You're not getting tons of tokens just with your eyeballs. But that's just a future.
Anytime somebody says tokens, I go back to the 80s when we'd go into arcade, and they're like, I need 50 tokens to play Defender, right? So I'm feeding dollar bills into the token machine, and I got the stack of tokens that I put up on the player while I play Defender or whatever.
And I got pretty good. One of the arcades for like a couple months had the token that you could take like a nickel, and if you spun it in the right way, it would like trick the arcade into thinking that it was a token.
Oh, Matthew.
Exactly. But it would take like 10 minutes, and finally I was like, yeah, this isn't worth it.
Not worth the token.
I'm a rich 8-year-old. I can go home and get, another $3.
Man. Awesome. All right. Well,
Chris, great discussion, man. This is wonderful.
Absolutely fun. And folks, if you are a first timer here on Marketing and Machines and Mischief, and you haven't subscribed, go down below this and hit that subscribe button, the like button, all of that fun stuff. If you're listening to us on audio podcast, welcome. Hit the follow button there on your podcast player, Apple, Spotify. All of this stuff is an investment in your marketing future. And of course, let us know your thoughts on how the future is to marketing of children. We love the comment. Thanks again. Shout out to Gail Does DIY. We love ideas for our shows. We want to serve our audience like that. But as always, before we go, we have a
little lesson learned. Always listen to Gail Does DIY. Always listen to her.
She spits facts, ladies and gentlemen.
Facts.